We are looking at climate stress tests. I think it's very likely that climate stress scenarios, as we like to call them, will be a key tool going forward.
Will you make this a top priority if confirmed to another term?
Yes, it will be.
The answer should have been no, but he didn't say no. Joining us now, Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey, ranking member on the Senate Banking Committee and top Senate economics guy. Well, you know, Senator Toomey, the problem is inflation. The economy is not collapsing, or we're not in trouble because of climate change. Like, takes 100 years to pan out. Why is he pandering to this? He's going to get nominated. He's going to get confirmed. He doesn't have to do this. Well, you just got a 7% inflation rate, for God's sakes, and there's no end to it.
So I'm giving him a little bit more of a pass, Larry. If you looked at the entire testimony, he also acknowledged something that the Democrats don't like to hear, which is that climate risk poses no risk of any physical sort on any bank or on our financial system. And the real nature of the risk that climate risk poses on our banking system is a political risk. It's a regulatory and political risk. It's the risk that somehow banks will be punished or penalized or increase capital requirements on categories of lending that are actually quite necessary for our economy. There is that risk. And, you know, he acknowledged that, you know, all they want is for banks to have a methodology for evaluating their risks. And let's face it, banks already have that. So I think we could, I understand your criticism, but I'm not as worried about it as I am with respect to some of the likely nominees that are coming our way, Larry, who are actually advocating something wholly different, which is that the Fed actively allocate credit to preferred industries and deny credit to politically unpopular industries. That's really dangerous, and that's coming.
That's where this is going. You are 100% right, sir. You know, they're going to keep money away from oil, from gas, from coal, but they're going to do it in other things too. They're going to, you know, winners and losers in healthcare, winners and losers in tech. You know, that's where this is going. That's why I was so. I mean, it's not. Here's the thing. I know Jay Powell has to walk a little bit of a tightrope, although I want to get to the money supply in a minute. But the fact is, you go to, this is not in the Fed's charter. This is not anything to do with Humphrey Hawkins or revised Humphrey Hawkins. We're supposed to be going for price stability and full employment and moderate interest rates. Where does it say climate change? That's the thing.
Yeah, so I get it. Look, this is the hook they have is the Fed's responsibility for supervising the bank holding companies. And that supervision, as I say, on the radical left wants to use that to allocate credit. Powell is just saying, yeah, okay, we'll make sure that banks understand the risk they're taking. I think actually he's in a very good place compared to what's coming our way.
So in the last 2 years, the money supply, M2, has increased by roughly 40% at an annual rate. And after the emergency is passed, now we're whole hog into a inflationary boom, for heaven's sakes. We're still growing M2 at about a 13% annual rate. These are numbers we have simply not seen. I don't even know if we saw them in the 70s. I don't think we did. My point is, you're not going to curb inflation until you start taking money out of the system, until you start withdrawing reserves, shrinking the balance sheet, and raising the short-term interest rates, Senator.
Correct.
So,
I agree.
I mean,
Powell,
how was he on this?
Yeah, so first of all, let's be honest, there was a big pivot when they finally acknowledged, I think it was in November, that yes, in fact, they have no reason to be confident that this is all just transitory, and they're moving their direction. So we've got a big acceleration in the tapering. Look, I think they should have ended bond buying more than a year ago. This has been going on way, way too long. But at least they're catching up. They realize they're behind the curve. They are catching up. Look, I made the point that if everybody's projections about the Fed raising short-term rates by 1/4 of a point 3 or 4 times over the course of this year, if that all comes true, then guess what? We're talking about 1% for the overnight rate, which is still a negative real interest rate. How is that going to solve the problem? That's not enough.
Do it. It ain't going to do it.
I don't think so.
You're right.
I don't think it is.
I mean, that's
so
the thing.
I think they're going to have to do more.
Right. This is a dream. There's two dreams out there. One is the one you just mentioned. A few quarter points this year is going to solve the problem. That is nonsense. The second point is that somehow inflation is going to come down. You know, typically, I don't want to be too dogmatic, Milton Friedman, but history does show it takes a year or two for monetary changes. They're still pumping the money supply up right now. That's going to run inflation into 2022 and probably 2023. So this is not going to have a happy ending. This is a long-lived problem.
I agree with your basic thrust there. I mean, I do think there are some supply bottlenecks that will be alleviated. I do think some of the demand surge we saw was just shifting purchases forward. So there will be some easing in the inflationary pressure from the moderation of those phenomenon. But you're right. We're actually still in an overly accommodative mode right now.
Yes, sir.
When we know we've got an inflation problem. We shouldn't be buying any bonds. So I do think the Fed is going to have to move faster than what the current forecast looks like because they're not talking about doing enough yet.
Last 20 seconds or so, can we make the Trump tax cuts permanent? My pal, Ace Pollster Rasmussen, I suggested this to Scott Rasmussen. He went out and polled it. 57% favor making the Trump tax cuts permanent, 24% opposed. We're going to save America. We're going to kill the bill.
We're going to kill the bill.
Let's make the ultra-successful Trump tax cuts permanent.
Absolutely. All we need to do is win back the House, the Senate, and the White House, and then we can do this. Unfortunately, the current crowd that's in the majority, the strongest economy of my lifetime is something they apparently object to. So they don't, they don't want any part of this. It's unbelievable, Larry, but, we have no sympathy on the other side of the aisle for this incredibly constructive tax reform.
Cavalry's coming, Pat. I feel it. The cavalry is coming.
Totally. I totally agree. I totally agree. I think we're in for a very, very good election cycle. And that's because Americans have too much common sense and too much natural wisdom to put up with the madness that they are witnessing every day.
Yes, sir.
So I agree. The cavalry's on the way.
Happy New Year. God bless Senator Pat Toomey. Talk soon.
Happy
Thank you,
New
sir.
Year, Larry.
All right. Up next.